What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Yelling and Propelling, episode number 7 now. Shout out to Furkan Korkmaz, shout out to Sporks, the utensil, and shout out Cork Entertainment, which is my other channel, the other spot where I produce content, and I take it way less seriously than I do the podcast, but I just wanted to give it a shout out if you guys haven't checked it out already. That's where I post all sorts of stuff with my friends. And my recent video actually reached 100 views in just over 24 hours, which is pretty crazy considering I have, maybe 120 subscribers, somewhere around there. So it's something I didn't really expect to happen anytime soon, but it was awesome. The support over there is great, as is the support here. So thank you guys for tuning back in, episode number 7. And there's a couple of things that I need to address before we get into this week's topic, which is, as you can see in the title, the pre-draft analysis, because the draft is in less than a week, and the Knicks pick number 11, as well as 42 in the second round. But like I said, first few things I want to get out of the way, get off of my chest. I've been on a little bit of a hiatus. That is no secret. It's been probably a month since I uploaded my last episode, and honestly, I just got tired of talking about last season. I really liked how the episodes were coming out, and like I said, I appreciated the support, all the feedback that I was getting, but I was just like, in my 8 years of watching the Knicks, like following them super heavily, last season was probably the worst, like the most disappointing, and it left me with the most sour taste in my mouth, and I kind of fell out of Knicks basketball for a little bit. Didn't want to really follow it as heavily, and I just can't wait for next season. I can't wait till we get a fresh start. That's kind of what I felt I needed with this little hiatus that I went on, but nevertheless, I am back, and I wanted to jump right in on a topic that will get our sights set on the 2022-2023 NBA season. And also, I'm sure you've noticed that I sound way different, way better, that is. I got a new mic for my birthday, the Blue Yeti, and it's a huge upgrade from the $35 Walmart mic that I was using previously, so the quality probably sounds a lot better, so I'm real happy about that. This mic is awesome. But yeah, let's jump into the NBA Finals for this episode's weekly recap segment. Golden State Warriors, Boston Celtics. The Warriors lead the series right now 3-2. Game 6 is tomorrow night. This is being recorded Wednesday night. So Thursday night at 9 p.m. we've got Game 6 in Boston. I myself am very excited to see what Ime Udoka and his players have conjured up for Game 6, because the number one thing they have to figure out, it is no secret, they need to figure out a way to score for the entire 48 minutes, and in particular, the last 12. That's been the biggest problem for them, and going into the series, this entire playoff run, the fourth quarter was a strength of theirs. That was either when they made their run to make the comeback and secure the victory, or they extended their lead and then ultimately won the game, but that it hasn't been that way at all in this series. And credit to Golden State and their really, really good defense, their team defense. When at times when a lot of the guys are they're having pretty bad shooting series for Golden State standards. Like, you got Steph Curry playing out of his mind, no secret again, but the rest of the guys, they're not shooting well this series. But it doesn't really get to any of their heads. And guys like Kevon Looney have stepped up, and Gary Payton II came back at the perfect time and is playing great off the bench. So, yeah, I mean, that's been the most impressive thing to me about Golden State is their team defense in this series. And like I said, Game 6 tomorrow night, 9 p.m., it's going to be a bloodbath in Boston. They're definitely not going out without a fight. And by a fight, I mean probably a real fight between Marcus Smart, Draymond Green, and others. But yeah, it's must-see basketball. This series has been great. I can totally see it going the distance. Boston wins Game 6, and then Game 7, it's a toss-up. If I had to make a decision with a gun to my head right now, I'd pick the Warriors to win the series. I think that's kind of obvious. I think most people would. It's been a super entertaining series thus far, and it's been a great way to end the 75th year of the NBA. Nothing too crazy going down with the Knicks at the moment, as I'm sure you all know, but that all changes next Thursday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time when the 2022 NBA Draft gets underway, and that's what this episode is all about, evaluating who's most likely to fall to the 11th pick, what trades we should consider, and much more. So let's first talk about our options if we stay put and draft with just the picks we currently own, and to remind you, that is in the first round, just pick number 11, and in the second round, pick number 42. So if you are completely unfamiliar with this year's draft class, essentially there is a big three, which are pretty much guaranteed to be the first three off the board, and that consists of Chet Holmgren out of Gonzaga, Paolo Banchero out of Duke, and Jabari Smith out of Auburn. And if you recall, just 2 short seasons ago, in the 2020 NBA draft class, that big three consisted of LaMelo, Anthony Edwards, and James Wiseman. So pretty similar in that sense. And after that, it gets pretty dicey, and nobody's really sure. Well, obviously, there's, you got the mock drafts, and you got guys like Jaden Ivey out of Purdue, who we're going to talk about a lot later in the show when I talk about trading up. So keep his name in your mind, Jaden Ivey out of Purdue. Keegan Murray, Ty Washington Jr. These are guys that are expected to go between picks 4 through 10 before we are on the clock. But, like I said, pick number 11, the New York Knicks will be on the clock. So who will be available then? Well, let's start with a guy named AJ Griffin, also out of Duke, and possibly the best shooter in this draft. And you heard me right, folks. At number 11, we could possibly snatch the best shooter that this draft class has to offer. And obviously he comes with some cons, and it makes sense because a guy who shoots 45% from 3, why is he not going first overall? Well, listen, he's not a great defender. A lot of people are concerned because you don't really want to draft the guy that high who was taken out in crucial moments of the championship game because he was too much of a defensive liability. Now, that gets blown out of proportion a bit. That 100% is what happened, and it's 100% a red flag for a prospect, but to me, I don't think we need to be too concerned about it. At 11, I feel like that's great value. We don't need to be drafting every single person, and every player we draft needs to be a two-way player. There's plenty of guys that are super valuable in the league, role players, that are super valuable in their role, and they're not that great at defense, but they come off the bench and provide some spark, or they mesh with that starting unit really well. AJ Griffin, to me, is a guy, he's 6'7", 6'8", maybe, lights out from 3, obviously, and can score in a multitude of other ways on offense. So I feel like he's a really interesting prospect, and all I'm saying is that I don't think we should completely look past him because he's a little below average on defense. So yeah, I don't think he's a huge liability on defense, and he has the tools. This is the common rebuttal, by the way, is that he's, like I said, he's got I think he's like a 6'10" wingspan, and like I said, he's 6'7", 6'8", so he's got the tools to be a good defender. Not saying that's not saying that he will be, but he can that can at least lead him to become a average defender, and if he can improve on the offensive end, to me, he's an interesting prospect. Another guy that has been talked about a lot in the past few weeks is Dyson Daniels. Not really a lottery lock going into the combine and all of that jazz with the team workouts, the individual workouts and all that, but he really impressed in a lot of the workouts, and scouts were really impressed with him, and now his position is right around 11, so he's definitely worth talking about. Last year, he actually played for the G League Ignite team. He stands 6'6" and is a very different player than who I just previously talked about, AJ Griffin. Dyson Daniels is much more of a true point guard. He's a pass-first kind of point guard, but he offers way more than that. He's a great on-ball defender. His defensive awareness has been labeled as elite, and a guy that would fit right into our scheme for sure. Something to be concerned about with him would be his ability to create his own shot and how it wouldn't be at a very high percentage. A lot of scouts are saying that he might struggle with his field goal percentage in the first few seasons of his career. So would he ever be able to make it around that curve and develop a consistent three-point shot and be able to drive into the paint and score consistently there? Honestly, I really like him, and I think that he would fit very, very well next to RJ, playing alongside quickly. Give Obi another guy to throw lobs to, Mitch, if he stays around as well. So yeah, I like Dyson Daniels. But yeah, already you got 2 very different players right off the bat, so it's a big decision because you could either go with defense and playmaking in Dyson Daniels, or you could go with all offense in AJ Griffin and a phenomenal three-point shooter. But to add a third player to the mix, we've got Johnny Davis out of Wisconsin, shooting guard, 6'5", a guy who put his team on his back last year and was able to get really any shot he wanted. Dude's a great shot creator, and the concern with him is that he can get like any shot he wants inside of the arc, but he shot just 30% from outside, and that's the concern, is that will he be able to develop an NBA level 3-point shot? He kind of reminds me of RJ, if I'm being honest, because he doesn't have elite athleticism and isn't a great 3-point shooter, but he does a lot of other things really well on offense, and there's a lot of potential there. So I don't know how well he would mesh on the team. He's not my first pick, I'll tell you that flat out right now. I think he's going to be a great player, but I don't know if that'd be my pick at number. Well, I know. I do know. I don't know why people say that. You ever get that? Like, I don't know if I want to do that when they clearly just don't want to do it. Anyways, I'm getting completely sidetracked. He would not be my pick at number 11, but he's a guy a lot of people were talking about. Johnny Davis out of Wisconsin, but let's throw another player into the mix, a fourth player, and that player is Benedict Mathurin out of Arizona. He's got good size for a wing, 6'6", and a lot of his, he's a pretty well-polished offensive player. He's fairly athletic and has a really nice shooting stroke, 37% from 3, 77 from the line. Also, he's Canadian, so I'd be curious to see if him and RJ go way back or not. But honestly, like a well-rounded player who also, just within the past couple of weeks, has worked his way into lottery. He's projected to go, 8 through 15 in that late lottery, early non-lottery. I don't know what you call that, but he's projected to go in between picks number 8 and 15, which we fall smack dab in the middle of. I think it'd be pretty solid value there. Another guy who I think would be pretty nice value at pick number 11 is Malachi Branham, freshman out of Ohio State University, 6'5", only 180, but he's a pretty good shooter, both set and off of the dribble, and scouts made a big note that he excels at scoring on off-ball motion plays, which fits right into NBA playbooks. A lot of talk has been about his reluctancy to shoot three-pointers, so scouts say, this is a guy that needs to trust his three-point shot more because he's not a horrible shooter at all. Definitely needs to improve his defense as well. Isn't the best defender by any means and has flashes, but it's he's not really the guy you want to put on the other team's best player by any means. So he's a skilled swingman, and he's 6'5" and only 180, so he can't really play the small forward unless we're talking Houston Rockets in 2018. That guy could play the center easily, but no, he's not. He's definitely more of a shooting guard to me than he is a small forward, but yeah, like I said, solid value at 11. Again, not my first pick. And between the last two I just talked about, I'd actually go with Mathurin over Branham, which might be... Actually, no, that's definitely not a hot take at all. But yeah, both, like I said, both very intriguing prospects. The last player I wanted to mention is Jalen Duren out of Memphis, a very different player from all of the guys I previously mentioned because everybody I talked about was either a guard or a wing player. This guy is a center, and a really good one at that. He's 6'10" with a 7'5" wingspan and a lot of comparisons, a lot of similarities to Dwight Howard. This dude is really young too. He's only 18 and won't turn 19 until November. But yeah, if you've seen any of his college clips, he's a man amongst boys, or at least that's how it was in college. He dunked everything, and was just a menace in the paint. Great shot blocker and lob threat, all of that. So now here's the thing about Duren. I really like him, and I truthfully think that he's going to be a top 5, easily top 10 player in this draft class when it's all said and done. But what are we doing with Mitchell Robinson? This pick would make no sense at 11 if we sign Mitchell Robinson to a very lucrative 3-4 year deal. But if we're letting Mitch walk, on the other hand, if we're letting him go out for nothing, and then we snatch Jalen Duren with the 11th pick, I think that's phenomenal value. That leads me right into what I wanted to let you guys know. My pick for number 11 is Jalen Duren if we let Mitchell Robinson go. I think Jalen Duren is going to be a beast and could be a center you totally want to build around. The dude doesn't have the stretch big ability, but you got to understand, he's 18. He's 3 years younger than me. And he's like got a 7'5" wingspan and can stretch like across my car. So, yeah, I think that number one, that's not something to be concerned about. The fact that he can't shoot his three ball yet, but can stretch it out to the mid range. But number two, we just need to figure out what we're doing with Mitch because it's so up in the air right now. Like, my pick at 11 in a perfect world, if we were to stay at the 11th pick, not move up, not move down, my pick would be Jalen Duren if we let Mitchell Robinson go. But if we do not let Mitchell Robinson go and we re-sign him to a big deal and say, hey, you're our guy for the future, my pick is one of two guys. It's either AJ Griffin or Dyson Daniels. I honestly don't think that both of them are going to be available at 11. I feel like one of the two will be gone, so I think whichever one of the two is available. But yeah, that would be the scenario for me. Let's now jump to the second round, where I won't talk a whole lot because after all, it is the second round, and I would be shocked if we kept the 42nd pick and didn't either move up, move down, add another second round pick for whatever. But like I said, in this hypothetical scenario, we are assuming that not a single trade goes down involving the Knicks on draft night, and we just pick 11 and 42. So 42, my number one pick, I'll tell you flat out, if he falls to us, which he might not because he's projected to go at the very best end of first round, most likely early second, is Marjan Beauchamp. I don't know if it's French, but another guy out of the G League Ignite team. He's 6'6", 180 with a 7-foot wingspan, which is pretty crazy. Another really well-rounded guy, both not only on offense but also on defense. Because of that 7-foot wingspan, he has all the physical tools to excel at an NBA level, and shows a lot of promise as both a mid-range and three-point shooter. A guy that could totally come in and contribute right away because he already has that experience in the G League. That's what's been great about the G League, is that now you got these teams where you can have, it's a nice alternative instead of going to college, and you get drafted from the G League. We've already seen it like last year with Jalen Green and Jonathan Kuminga. So this is another guy that has that experience, and it's good experience, and he could be I think he's going to be a steal is what I'm trying to tell you. And I honestly don't think he falls to us at 42, but I like him a lot, and if he was there, I'd really be upset if we didn't pick him. So Marjan Beauchamp, I still don't know. Another guy I'd really like in the second round is Ryan Rollins out of Toledo. Only 6'3", 179, but the rest of his resume looks really good. It splits the 50-40-90. You know how all the NBA players, such a highly sought after shooting split. He achieved it in college, and he's just a pure knockdown shooter. Really, really good passer and playmaker as well. And one of the only knocks you can really say is that he's a little undersized, and would be especially undersized if he's playing all the shooting guard as opposed to point guard. But shot making is the most important thing, and I really like him. I think that at 42, again, if he's there when we're on the clock, I'd totally go for him. Just like Beauchamp, Rollins is expected to go early to mid second round. So if either of those two guys are available when we're on the clock in the second round, then those are my picks. But there's a decent chance that neither of them are. So looking elsewhere, Andrew Nembhard out of Gonzaga, 6'5", 195. He played all 4 years, so he's coming into the draft as a senior. He's an adequate defender for sure, super unselfish, and has proven to be a pretty great playmaker, and has proven to hit some clutch shots for Gonzaga over his 4 years. And that does prove to be the problem, though, is that his shot kind of comes and goes, and he's a very inconsistent shooter. So that's obviously something he would have to work on, but I like his ability to create his own shot, and I like his unselfishness. I think he'd be a pretty solid pickup in the second round. One last guy that I've kind of been on the fence about for a while is Hugo Besson out of France, 6'6", 180. He's 21 years old and has a couple years of overseas experience under his belt, so there's that. Really crafty, super crafty point guard. One of the better true point guards in this draft class, but a lot of people are concerned about his outside shot. He really hasn't proven that he can hit outside shots consistently, and as we all know in today's NBA, your point guard needs to be able to hit his outside shots And if he's not a consistent 3-point threat, then the other four starters, the other four guys on the court better be, or else that spacing is gonna, that's not gonna be good spacing. So yeah, he's like a fascinating prospect because it's like 6'6", 180, and out of France. So it's like it's low risk, but like there's a lot of upside for sure with Hugo. And do we go Hugo? I guess we'll find out. But yeah, I wouldn't mind picking him. I wouldn't be mad at this pick at all at 42 or even a little earlier in the second round if we were to trade up. But yeah, I'll take Hugo Bassan at 42. Why not? All right, so to sum up my dream scenario for if we were to keep the number 11 and number 42 pick in this year's draft, is very much based around the big, humongous question mark with Mitchell Robinson, whether or not we keep him or not. I think the more likely scenario is that we're going to let him walk this offseason, which I don't want to happen, unfortunately. I think it is the more likely scenario right now. So I'm just going to assume that's what we're going to do, and I'm going to draft accordingly. So my dream scenario would be at 11, we pick Jalen Duren, and he's our center for the future, which I totally think he's capable of. And then in the second round at number 42, we take either Marjan Beauchamp or Ryan Rollins, either of the two. Hopefully, at least one of them would be available. I think they're going to go early to mid-second round for sure. Let's get back into reality and start talking about the possibility of all sorts of trades going down, because we can almost take it to the bank that the Knicks will be involved in at least one trade in Thursday night's draft. Listen, guys, I think there's a very real possibility that three major things go down for the Knicks, not all at the same time. I think one of these three things go down, and I'm going to list them out for you right now. The first one is what everybody and their mama has been talking about, and it is the Knicks trading up to number 4 to select Jaden Ivey from Purdue. I told you to remember the name. I hope you did. An explosive, extremely explosive point guard out of Purdue, like I just said. And the Knicks are not the only team looking to trade with Sacramento to get that pick. The Pistons, Pacers, as well as the Wizards are all interested in trading up to number 4, and it's no secret who they want to select. It's Mr. Ivey without a doubt. They're not, they're letting it be known. So how willing are the Kings to give up that pick? Well, they're not super unwilling. They haven't said Ivey's our guy. There's no doubt we're taking him. So they're listening to offers for sure, but the fact that there's three other teams competing for the same exact thing, with arguably more on their roster to offer, more interesting assets to offer the Kings, doesn't seem like super likely. As much as I'd love it for it to happen, it doesn't seem like the most likely scenario. But another big move that we could possibly see in Thursday's draft is trading up not to number 4, but to number 7 with Portland, who has expressed that they are listening to offers and are possibly looking to trade down in the draft. So I've heard some rumors about the Knicks moving up to number 7. Now, who would we select with that pick? That's not nearly as obvious as if we were up to trade up to number 4 and select Ivy. Everybody knows that's who we'd be selecting there. But number 7, it's a toss-up between a couple of guys. We could really secure our spot in the Dyson Daniels sweepstakes if we get up to number 7. He'll most likely be available there because sitting down at number 11, it's definitely not guaranteed. Shaedon Sharpe is a super interesting prospect at number 7, and somebody I talked about just about 10 minutes ago, Benedict Mathurin, again, could guarantee that we would have a shot of selecting him if we were to get up to number 7. The third pick swapping scenario I promised to enlighten about would be the Knicks trading down from 11 to the middle of the first round or even later in the first round. I think we should absolutely listen to these offers about trading down because there's so much talent to me in like the entire lottery. Like all the lottery picks I think are going to be such great players, and then to me it's like later in the first round it kind of falls off. Like there's the big 3 like I talked about at the very beginning of the show, but I feel like the big it's like a big 15. Like there's like 15 guys that can be really, really good, and then after that those like other prospects kind of mesh with the second rounders to me. It's just how I see it, honestly, and I think that pick number 11 is so valuable, and a team could offer a lot to trade up from, whatever, like the 20s, and trade up to 11, and then we end up with a 20 pick, but like we get a future first rounder, whatever it is. I think we should listen to those offers for sure, especially if we get to a point where we can't decide on a guy at 11. If we can't get anything done to trade up, and then we're not happy with our options at 11, don't like pick a guy that we're just like like the whole organization is just like, all right, yeah, like whatever, this guy's all right. Then trade down, and I think we can make a lot happen with that. I got to backtrack a bit and shed some more light on this Jaden Ivey situation. Let's take a look at one of a gazillion mock trades involving the Knicks and Kings swapping picks, which would result in the Knicks going up to number 4 to select Ivey. This particular one involves the Blazers in a 3-team deal in which the Knicks would receive Alex Len and the number 4 pick, and the Blazers would get Julius Randle and the number 11 pick, and the Kings would receive Josh Hart and the number 7 overall pick. Now, I screen capped this a week or two ago, and the newer reports are saying that the Kings are looking for a more hefty return on that number 4th pick because they know how highly sought after it is. They're not stupid. Well, I mean, they are the Sacramento Kings, and they gave up on Tyrese Halliburton way too early, but they're not that stupid, I guess. So honestly, I think the Blazers would be kind of interested in this. I think the Kings would be looking for way more, but let's assume that both teams give the A-OK, and then you're in charge of the Knicks. You're the final one to pull the trigger. Are you doing it? Personally, I definitely am, because you take Alex Len's contract and you let that expire. I'm on the I want to dump Julius Randle's contract and I want to move on from Randle boat. I know there's not all Knicks fans are, because it was just an off year where he averaged 20, 10, and 5 still, and for an off year that's a great year. It was not like I'm not gonna even get into this, but I am in that boat that if we can dump Randle in the draft on Thursday, then listen, it's business decision. I'm doing it. So yeah, if they were to accept this trade proposal, then I would 100% pull the trigger on it. If you guys remember, my short list of untouchables includes RJ Barrett, Emmanuel Quickley, and Obi Toppin. Any trade involving one of those 3, I'm not putting my finger anywhere near the trigger. And if that's what it costs to get Jaden Ivey, then count me out. And really any scenario where we end up with the 3 I just mentioned plus Jaden Ivey as Knicks after Thursday night's draft, I'm pretty happy with. I don't know about giving up every one of our picks for the next 3 years, but you know what I'm saying? Like, I want Jaden Ivey to be a Knick just as much as the next guy, but like I don't want to give up, our whole future and then some. So nevertheless, it is time for the final prediction on what we think will go down. You guys heard what I want to go down if we were to keep both of our picks, what kind of trades I would be very interested in, what kind of offers I'm listening to, what kind of offers I am hanging up the phone on. But let me tell you guys exactly how I think Thursday's draft will go down for the Knicks. I believe this draft goes very similar to how last year's went, with all sorts of these big trade talks, but no real huge deals go through for the Knicks. However, Leon Rose and company, they pull a couple of strings, and we end up with 1 or 2 extra second rounders this year, as well as like a second rounder, maybe even a first rounder for one of the years to come. So again, like these under the radar moves, which by the way I would be completely satisfied with, and I hope most Knicks fans would. While it's not like as flashy as Jaden Ivey and it's not as flashy as any of the big 3 that I mentioned, I feel like that'd be a good way to take our cards and really play them well. That's all I got for you guys. Thank you very, very much for listening to Yelling and Propelling episode number 7. Tune into next week's episode and you'll hear my live reactions to the entire 2022 NBA draft with some analysis to follow later in the show. It's something I haven't tried yet on the show, and I'm very excited for it. You'll hear my live reactions to everything Knicks related. If we make a trade, you'll hear me screaming about it, yelling and propelling, if you will. But yeah, I wanted to spice it up, try out something different, and let me know what you guys think of the idea and how the video turns out next week. And let me know what you guys want the Knicks to do. I'm super, genuinely, extremely curious to hear what all of you guys would prefer the Knicks do and would prefer what they didn't do. Leave it in the comments. Shoot me a DM. Anyway, just let me know. I'd love to hear your opinions on it. But that pretty much wraps her up. Farewell for now. Have a superb day or night, and I hope to see you again soon. Go Knicks.